So, US Soccer renewed Mauricio Pochettino's contract till 2030, and hopefully he stays till the World Cup, okay? With that said, I've talked about this extensively on YouTube, Twitter, Instagram. I was always for this. I wanted continuity. I wanted Mauricio Pochettino to stay in charge of the US men's national team. But Herc Gomez was against this renewal. And today, for your entertainment, we're going to be debating that. Hello. If you're new here, I'm Filippo, and welcome to Tactical Manager TV. And today, me and Herc will be debating the rehiring, well, not really rehiring, right? He was never fired or never left. The renewal of Mauricio Pochettino with the U.S. men's national team. And I mean, ultimately, we're only going to know who's right when the cycle ends, but it's still going to be a fun debate. Now, before we continue, don't forget to drop a like in this video. I won't be asking during the episode, right? Because I'm going to be debating Herc Gomez, so drop a like right now. It's a great way to support the channel for free. And let me know your thoughts in the comment section down below. Were you for maintaining Mauricio Pochettino in charge? Or did you want a new coach to take over the U.S. men's national team for the 2030 cycle? And regardless of what your answer is, let me know why. Okay, let's begin. Okay. So Herc asked for this conversation, whatever you want to call it, a few times on X. And I saw that people wanted it. And I'm like, this is going to be fun. Every time I had Herc here on the channel, even when we weren't going to debate something, it turned out to be a little debate here and there. But this episode is all about Pochettino, Herc. And before we even start, how are you doing? And I want to ask you a question. Have you become a professional hater?
A professional hater? You know, most people would say I've been a hater my whole life. It's a funny thing being in my position because I say something, I'm going to get a reaction in Mexico, and they're like, that's the pro-US guy. He's the pro-MLS guy. He's the pro-US men's national team guy. I say something in the United States, and that guy's a pro-Mexican national team lover. He's pro-Liga MX. He hates us. I'm going to get it either way. So pro-hater, no. I try to be as real as I can be to myself and as fair. And you know what I find interesting? There are less people on Twitter. Don't call it X. Don't call it X. There are less people using Twitter now because they don't like the reactions. My colleagues.
I call it X. I'm young.
No. That's nothing to do with youth. Nothing to do with youth. My colleagues, by the way, I have colleagues who choose not to engage on Twitter anymore. They take their opinions to Threads, to Instagram, other places because they don't want the reaction. Oh, they're just comment with emojis. Like they don't want to give an opinion. And that to me is crazy. Like give an opinion. Don't be afraid to give an opinion. There are a lot of new fans of the US men's national team. New fans that probably haven't followed the team the way you and I have followed in the past, that are right now seeing this team and have opinions of the team and probably don't know who we are. And they're like, who the fuck is this guy? You know, so those opinions, those reactions are interesting to me. And it's part of the, I think, organic growth of becoming a proper footballing nation. So I'm here for it.
Yeah. Also, on top of that, what's the point of even talking about the sport if we're not going to put out opinions? And opinions, obviously, there will be popular. There will be popular opinions. Like for example, 2024, when we got grouped in the Copa America, I would say 99% of the fans, pundits, media wanted Berhalter out at that point. So that was a very popular opinion. But prior to the Copa America, I was fairly unpopular among a certain group of people when I was talking about Berhalter because we had just won the Nations League and he was doing okay, right? But again, what you're saying right now, and let me bring up the tweet, Herc. Let me actually bring up the...
Hey, it's me interrupting myself. Now, before we continue, a quick word from the sponsor of this video, Monarch. Do not go anywhere. We'll be back very soon.
You know, keeping my finances organized has lowered my stress levels over the years. And then recently I found out about Monarch, which improved all of that even more. And did you know that Monarch was the best budgeting app of 2025 according to the Wall Street Journal? And with our promo code TMTV, you will get 50% off your first year of Monarch Core at monarch.com. And listen, Monarch is a personal finance app that tracks everything. Accounts, investments, saving goals, and even spending. Well, obviously spending. That might even be the most important part of them all. You link all of your accounts in minutes. And then you see all your money, everything very well organized, very visual in different categorizations. Ever since I started using Monarch, it's been saving me time and money. And since time is money, it's been saving me money twice. And recently, what I've been using the most from Monarch is the AI assistant. Like, for example, I can ask the AI assistant, how much did I spend in traveling last summer? And then the AI assistant will say, $0 because you're broke, so you didn't travel. But if I did, it would tell me. I also like to use their AI insights because what's very interesting about it is that it can literally tell me if my spending actually went up or was it inflation. And usually it's inflation. So use the code TMTV at monarch.com to get your first year of Monarch Core half off at just $50. That's 50% off your first year at monarch.com with the code TMTV. Thank you very much, Monarch. Wait, Herc, let me actually bring up the tweet.
Bring up the tweet. You got receipts.
No, the tweet is out there. That it's very recent also, right? You are calling out that this will eventually probably become a problem, the renewal of Pochettino, right? That's the sentiment I got out of it. I think I think it's gonna pay dividends over the course of this cycle. But let me actually let you explain the tweet in your own
All right,
words.
go ahead and read. Can you read the tweet out? Because I can't see it.
17, I'm going to zoom in a little bit more so I can make sure people can see it. So 17, 12, and 2 in 31 matches. 0-2-0 record against Mexico. No trophies. 3-2-0 or 0, 3-2. What's the order here again? It's draws and losses. Right?
It's wins, losses, and draws.
So that's the order. Okay, so 3 wins, 2 losses, 0 draws in the 2026 Expanded World Cup. And the worst defeat in modern World Cup history while hosting the tournament. By the way, guys, I saw
for the U.S.
Yeah, I saw some people going at you for that one. I understood. You're talking about the U.S.
There's a character limit here.
Yeah. That one I understood. You're not talking because I mean,
I had people going, Brazil lost 7-1. I'm like, I don't care about Brazil. Brazil's not in this topic. So yes,
what you meant was that this was the worst modern World Cup history while we were hosting, while in 2022.
No, just worst loss in their World Cup history, and it happened while they were hosting the World Cup. Okay. Very quickly, that's not my opinion. None of this is my opinion, which I found very, very interesting. The reaction. This is not my opinion. If this in some way, shape, or form bothers you, think about that for a second. These are things that happened in the 20 months. That's not my opinion. My opinion comes underneath this. And I don't know if you have that. The rest of the tweet.
Let me pull it down here. I do. Hold on. Because that's where
this is my opinion. That's my opinion right there. It says, I am not a fan of the rehire and have serious doubts about Pochettino's ability to complete a 4-year cycle with a program that has lost significant time in 2 different cycles. That's my opinion. If you think Pochettino is going to be here till 2030, I can get on board with that. I saw some things during the World Cup where I was like, you know what? I actually really enjoyed that. And if you go through my YouTube channel, I did breakdowns of games and plays and analysis tactically of things that this team really did well in the Paraguay game and the Australia game. The videos are out there. There's plenty of positive things you can see from the World Cup. But you and I have been around covering this team, and you remember 2018. I'm pretty sure you're a lot younger than I was. That's probably when you started getting involved with the U.S. men's national team at a grander scale, talking about it online. They threw the baby out with the bathwater. And what that means is they failed to qualify in 2018, Tech, and they said, forget the Jeff Camerons, the Tim Howards, forget the, Omar Gonzalez's, forget any type of big player that was on the team at that time. And they said, let the kids play. Let the kids learn. And it was a Lord of the Flies environment. Go read the book if you've not. Some of you guys have already read it, probably in middle school or high school, but it's kids governing themselves. And they were gifted caps. They were gifted, international appearances, which doesn't happen anywhere else in the world. And in that gifting of caps and appearances, they waited 13 months for Greg Berhalter. Dave Sarachan was the caretaker, interim manager, caretaker of the team for 13 months while Greg Berhalter finished his job with the Columbus Crew. You lost time there. And then you fast forward to after 2022 World Cup, you lost more time with the Reynas, the Berhalters, the U.S. soccer drama, which affected the team and was awkward. Not my not my analysis or opinion. It's what players like Walker Zimmerman have just recently come out and said per reports online. So you waste more time there. And now here you are, and you're saying, well, he's got 4 years now. Great. Do you think he's going to be around for 4 years, Tech?
He signed till 2030. And
do you think he's going to be around for 4 years?
I do. Right now, I do.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
At the moment, yes.
What you at the
But one question.
No,
when
no,
you
no,
say
not
be
at the
around-
moment. This
Here's
is where I'm getting at. This is where I'm getting at. Unless he's around for 4 years, it's going to be very difficult to not see this as harming the national team because of everything he's going to encompass, the generational change, the tournaments he's going to have at the helm, the temptations to leave, et cetera, et cetera. And U.S. Soccer could say, well, we protected ourselves. Dude, 2016 was a Copa America they hosted in the United States. They had a surplus of 160 million. What do you think they're going to get the U.S. Soccer Federation for hosting the biggest sporting event in the history of sports? I don't think money should be the issue here. You know, let's make a sporting decision, and I'll leave you with this, and the floor is yours, okay? 2 things. 1, who is making this decision? Matt Crocker left. Who's the sporting person in the room making the decision? Matt Crocker leaves, and many people, because my co-host on Dual Nats, Sebastian Salazar, is like, you saw what they did at the World Cup?
He doesn't like you, right? He doesn't like you.
Sebi doesn't like many things. Okay. I said, Sebi, this offer was on the table per reports before the World Cup. So regardless of what you saw in the World Cup, that's not why they offered him the contract. And lastly, I was accused of being disingenuous by many people with the tweet. You want a real footballing culture. Pochettino wants a real footballing culture. If in Brazil, the national team coach goes to the president before the tournament and says, we will win the World Cup, and doesn't win the World Cup, what happens? In Brazil, if they play in Rio de Janeiro and the semifinal will be in Rio de Janeiro, and they goes on national TV and says, we will be here in a semifinal next summer, and then eats 5 goals and loses in humiliating fashion, what would happen? If after telling the president of your country they win the World Cup, you then go to a different country on a different show, and then when they ask you the same question, you respond, well, hey, I don't kick a soccer ball. I don't score the goals. I don't defend. So, we're going to see. All these things I just told you, what would happen in the country of Brazil in a footballing culture if the coach said these things and they didn't happen?
Well, the coach would get fired, but ultimately also it comes down to the expectations and the standards for that country, right? Like if the U.S. did lose 5-0 in the semifinals, I still think we would be happy with the overall campaign.
They didn't lose 5-0 in the semifinals.
No, we didn't lose 5-0. I'm just saying that
Brazil, was the final score 4-1 in the round of 16?
Belgium. Even though I have an argument to be made there that the loss on its own was worse than the Dutch one, and it felt worse, but the performance against the Dutch and this one were very similar overall in 2022. But the thing with...
You think so?
Yeah. I'll go through in a second.
I put more on the blame on the Dutch on the coaching staff and more individually on the players for the Belgium game. Yes, that's the difference here.
Yeah. I agree with that, because when you go to the Dutch game, for example, him starting Jesus Ferreira at the false 9 right away, panicking at halftime, and then putting Gio Reyna at the false 9 after he had an issue with the player out of position. It was just a whole mess of how things played out.
Tyler Adams ran out of gas. You rode him too hard.
Rode him too hard. Everything was out. Also, a little bit of lack of depth due to some weird roster decisions, like bringing 4 right backs, for example. I still can't get over that. Right?
You didn't like the Shaq Moore decision?
Not even myself. There was a YouTube channel that made a video and put Shaq Moore as like one of the worst players of the World Cup.
What?
HITC sevens. He was the thumbnail.
He barely played. How was he one of the worst players of the World Cup? Come on.
The point. The worst players don't play. But anyhow, going back to that, going to the first thing you said about the 2030. Well, if we're gonna think about it that way, I know you're gonna say that there were rumors of Pochettino signing with this team, that team. Reports, yeah. Reports, but they were denied, but there probably was. My question to you is this. If we sign any high-profile coach, right? Pochettino is considered a high-profile coach, right? Coach Chelsea, PSG. So I'm not even saying like Pep Guardiola, but like Pep Guardiola, Simeone, even an Ancelotti, or all those guys, because there were rumors of Ancelotti leaving Brazil right now, for example. Reports actually of Ancelotti leaving Brazil, which is nonsense. He just renewed till 2030 also.
Right. They're there. I mean,
Yeah.
I don't know the Brazilian FA like you do, but I doubt they're in the business of wanting to lose money, and that's a lot of money they're going to lose.
Yeah, for sure. But the overall point is like if you get a high-profile coach, there's no guarantee that he'll be here till 2030. Also, there's no guarantee that the federation might not fire him, right? Let's say he shits the bed in the Copa America, he loses Nations League Gold Cup. Then hey, we messed up. There's 2 years. Do we pull the trigger?
But that's I get you, Tech, and I'm with you. But that's a lot different than thinking the coach may just leave you for something he thinks
I don't
is
think
better.
he'll leave. What? But here's the question. It's like, besides the reports, right? Because if he was going to leave, why would he not leave? You're going to say, oh, there are no offers from Europe right now. That's fine. He can wait a year. My question is, like, what guarantees do we have that he'll have an offer during the Copa America, right?
I guarantee there'll be interest in Pochettino.
Why is there none now then?
Because there's no available teams right now. All you got to do is wait a few months, and there's going to be availability. The 20 months that Pochettino was here with the U.S., and many would say, well, that's a good problem. There's a coach who's wanted. Yeah, okay. Brentford, that was a report. Brentford in the Premier League. The constant flirting with the Tottenham Hotspurs. The Real Madrid report, which I think was more one-sided than Real Madrid actual interest, but there are reports that, Florentino Perez really likes Pochettino. And then right before the World Cup, weeks before the World Cup, he took a meeting with AC Milan. And JT Batson says, yeah, we were well aware of the meeting. These all happened 20 months into his tenure with the U.S. men's national team, where he had a contract and he wanted to fulfill it to the World Cup. Well, now he's got 4 years, and not my opinion. Again, reports, there was a bunch of reporters, The Athletic, and other reporters around in this small little thing they did where U.S. Soccer invited select, members of the press, and they had a round table with Mauricio Pochettino, and they straight up asked him, like, hey, will you be here till 2030? And he kind of like didn't say no, like didn't shoot down the rumor or report or the idea of him, not taking another. He's like, well, you never know. 4 years is a long time. And he even said what you said. It could be that in 1 year from now, U.S. doesn't like me. Like these things could happen, but it's different when it's the worry on my end is not that U.S. Soccer fires him, not that something happens, but that he would want to leave.
I just can't really make a decision in terms of like considering it a bad hire in a circumstance like that, because then if we hired something crazy like a Pep Guardiola, the question will come up, what happens if Spain knocks on the door in 2028, or if Barcelona invites him, like these two that he has a different kind of affection for, right? And they can offer a lot of money. So,
but I think, can I ask you a personal question?
Yes.
Would you take that chance if it was a Pep Guardiola?
Of course.
Yeah. Well, there you go. There you go.
But I would. But the other question to you is this: like Mauricio Pochettino. Let me actually remove this because we already put this on screen. But before I remove it, just so everyone can see our gladiator
Russell
right there,
Crowe. Look at
Russell
that.
Crowe. Yeah. Unfortunately, we hired Pochettino instead of Russell Crowe. But
who is a soccer fan, massive Leeds fan.
I didn't know that actually.
Yeah, I interviewed him one time for Ahora Nunca in Spanish, the show that I have, and he couldn't have been nicer. He's a massive Leeds fan, big footy fan.
So, Pochettino, you're saying your biggest fear for this cycle is that, let's say, we finish the Copa America, even if he does well, he gets a big
assuming the U.S. is in the Copa America.
Yeah, assuming we're in the Copa America, it hasn't been officially confirmed, and even if it is, I think we still have to qualify like last time, which Mexico...
Unless you host it.
No, but last time we had to qualify, remember? Yeah, it happened. We had We had to make it to the Nations League semifinals. Yeah. Or
is that what it was?
Yeah. And Mexico almost didn't qualify because of Honduras, and the U.S. also had to qualify.
That's the Jamaica game, right? That's the Giovanni Reina Haji Wright scores 2 goals.
No,
Jamaica
that's the
game.
Semis. That we already qualified then.
Okay.
It was the round prior. We had to qualify, even though we were. I remember because at the time we're like, shit. Like, you're serious? We're hosting and we're not guaranteed a spot. That's weird.
I think you're right. Canada played a playoff versus maybe Trinidad and Tobago.
Yeah,
in Dallas.
Exactly.
Yeah, exactly. I think you're right.
You had to get out of the group or something.
Yeah, I think you're right.
Didn't have to play. So we qualified, and again, we are very likely to host the next one in 2028, but we don't know the criteria for qualification. So it seems like we're going to play, but you're right. It's not confirmed. But assuming we play the Copa America, which it looks like it's going to be expanded, by the way. It's going to be 20 teams instead of 16. That's the
Why?
rumor out of Peru.
Why not?
We're expanding everything these days. But the thing with Pochettino, it's like when you look at his renewal, based on the options we have also, because you're talking about not wasting time, and I think wasting six. Of course, if Pochettino leaves in 2 years, we pretty much very likely wasted 2 years unless he
Right.
leaves somewhat.
Can we talk about why it's a waste? Because most people were like, well, why would it be a waste? He already knows the group. The group already knows him. Like,
Well, every new coach is a restart.
well, forget the restart for a second. It's not just a restart for the coach. Like 15 of the 26 players that played in this last World Cup will be in their 30s next World Cup. You've got to have a generational change now for the first time.
Right? Early 30s.
It doesn't matter.
31,
It doesn't really matter. They'll still be in their 30s. And trust me, you can say modern medicine, sports science, whatever the case may be, players start breaking down in their 30s. And it's not a guarantee that the Tyler Adams of the world, who I hope will be there, but are their body betrays them. The Christian Pulisics of the world, the Weston McKennies, the Anthony Robinsons, Chris Richards. It's not a guarantee that these players will be at optimum level next World Cup. You've got to start ushering in a new era gently and smartly. There are players who you got to get experience for, and in the right way. It can't be like 2018. Albert, the Halls, the Mehmetis, the players like Xavier Gozo. There are players who you've got to kind of Diego coaching if you'd like. Usher in and figure out if they have the mettle to be there, and that's going to take time as well. So starting over with those players, that to me could be tricky. That's why the 2 years, if it is 2 years or whatever the case may be, is very important.
So if he stays till 2030, if we had like some way to predict the future right now, and I could guarantee you he's staying till 2030,
I'm for it. Go for it.
Because
I got no issues.
And now him leaving, or look. Obviously, if he leaves before 2030, then I'm like, what's the point? Because ultimately, the goal is to prepare a team. Now, he had 2 years to prepare for this World Cup. And obviously, as a guy that's not from the U.S., it probably took him some time also to get to know the player pool. Because
62 different players played.
70, right?
I saw something like 62. I don't know if it's 70 in the whole tenure.
Or he called up 70 and 62 played, something like that.
Okay.
And it felt like as the World Cup approached, the two friendlies before the World Cup and the World Cup, he kind of got a grasp of the group. He started to understand where to play each player. He found players like Alex Freeman, found a way to utilize them. So it started to feel like he was understanding the players that he had. And then I know you disagree with this, but I'm going to say it again. Up until the Belgium game, it was the best World Cup the United States has ever had, the men's national team. Up until the Belgium game. And we can even talk about that for a little bit, because I know there's many arguments against that I don't really agree with. And the Belgium game, like you said earlier in this video, it was much more of a player problem. And again, when it's a coach problem, we talk about the coach. I thought it was more about weird individual mistakes, because if you look at the Belgium game, and this is what I wanted to talk about before, Belgium and Dutch game, right? The Dutch game, it wasn't really individual mistakes. It was just like, it never felt like we were really in that game. There were mistakes of Tyler Adams.
There are a couple of times you could have gone up in the scoreboard. I mean, Christian Pulisic has a fantastic chance with his left foot early on in the game that could change maybe the rest of the game, condition, the Dutch a little bit more.
I kind of agree with that, but at the same time, the way the game played out, like, for example, when we scored the Haji Wright goal, that was a bit of an awkward goal, but a goal is a goal.
Goal's a goal.
It was a goal. The Dutch right away just went back and scored again, right?
I mean, Dumfries scored 2 goals. They were working you down the flanks. They knew exactly how to attack you.
Yeah, and then and Van Gaal talked about that after.
He did.
Now, if we go to the Belgium game, what Belgium did to adjust the U.S. is they put Luke Bakio on the right side, which would be to try to attack Tim Ream, even though the goals mostly came from Charles de Ketelaere, right? They also put a more athletic midfield to try to match up with the U.S.
Correct.
De Bruyne. I think Onana came in for De Bruyne.
Onana got injured. Tielemans is there. Yeah.
Tielemans stayed. He was the less athletic of the bunch, but you need a guy that can pull the strings and make things happen.
Trossard destroyed everybody down the left-hand side. Serginho Dest, Alex Freeman.
Dest, I don't know what he was doing, because even that header, like that was just bizarre. But the thing with the U.S. with that game is we were lucky to finish the first half down 2-1. We should have been down first, we shouldn't have scored in the first half. That's the reality. But we went to the second half 2-1, and early in the second half, we were doing okay. Like in early in the second half.
Really well for 10 minutes. And do you remember the change at halftime?
change at halftime from the United States?
Yes. It's Serginho Dest
Ooh,
comes off, and it's
that
Giovanni Reina comes on, and
Reina.
Gio does a good job with the U.S. men's national team of now pinning Belgium in their own half. And for 10 minutes, you've got a sensation where you're back in this game. It's only 2-1, regardless of what happened.
And
Yes.
then why do we ultimately lose this game? Is Matt Freeze?
There's
does
two
what he
there's
does.
two there's two key moments in this game. One
In the
happens
game or second half?
the second half, excuse me.
Second half.
What? Yes, and it happens about 2 to 3 minutes apart from each other. Christian Pulisic fractures his leg trying to kick the ball. Guy puts his foot right in front of it, and he kicks the guy's foot, fractures that leg. And then 2 minutes later, while he's still hobbling around, Matt Freese has a mental error, a misjudgment, and he gets his pocket picked. And Tim Ream tries to corral the ball with the outside of his foot and sees it go by him, which could have been easily prevented. Two very big individual mistakes, and now the game is over.
So going back, player mistakes. And then the fourth goal was just, I don't know what Chris Richards was doing, end of the game, whatever. We shouldn't have conceded that anyhow. It should have ended 3-1, but we had to end the humiliation ritual, right? By them scoring and doing the Trump dance in front of us, making fun of us. We deserved it at the end of the day, right? So there's a big difference between the Dutch one and the Belgium one, where I don't know. Like, when I look back at the Belgium game, I don't know what else Pochettino could have done. And then to the question is right now, even if there's you talked about, like, if there's a risk of Pep Guardiola leaving in 2028, we didn't sign him, obviously, and probably we never will. If you have this risk with Pochettino, who's the other option you have?
They already have the other option here. It's already set in motion, and that's what I think.
Yours, not Chirundolo.
Let me just really quickly talk about Chirundolo real quick, and I'll tell you who I would pick, because that's everybody's. Well, why don't you say something, Herc? Who would you do? Just offer solutions. I'll give you a solution. Okay, sorry about that.
That's what I want. Like, Chirundolo is what it is. Like,
no, but it's not, because this is set in motion. They've in some way everybody's now trying to copy the Spanish model, the Argentine model. The national team,
just to kick the crap out of people.
No.
And call for penalty kicks.
Easy, Brazil.
That's the Argentine model these days.
I came very Brazilian today, if you didn't notice.
Yeah, I see the Ronaldinho one, and it's trophies.
That
was when he was someone. I forgot who it was. Someone was with the Ballon d'Ors, and then he posted that picture.
Yes. Yeah. Those are his Ballon d'Ors. Might have been Messi. I'm not too sure. Steve Chirundolo, it's already in motion. Think about this. If the head coach of the national team, for whatever reason, doesn't complete the cycle, Steve Chirundolo, who's now with the U23s, he'll be with the Olympic team, and maybe they will do something great in the Olympics, if and when they qualify. Great.
No, they'll qualify to the Olympics as the host nation. That one's confirmed.
Oh, yeah, you're right. They're host nation.
Yeah. It's in LA.
It's in LA. I'll tell you a story about that later. But yeah, you're absolutely right. The U.S. is hosting the Olympics. So they're there. They're there. It's an easier sell. Luis de la Fuente, Spanish model, U20 coach, goes up to the first team. Lionel Scaloni, Argentine model, U20 coach, goes up to the first team. It's already
Scaloni
there.
he was
a U20 coach.
Assistant also of Sampaoli for a while there.
Oh,
he was in the 2018 World Cup.
2018.
He was
2018. Yeah, I think he just retired as a player. Yes.
Yeah.
Which is not a great thing, Sampaoli. Anyways, I digress. That's already set in motion. I could already see this happening, where if something happens to Pochettino and he's not fulfilling the cycle for whatever reason, he doesn't finish the cycle, Steve Chirundolo is going to be the head coach of the national team. And in the case of the Spanish national team, everybody in Spain and their mother knows how the Spanish national team play and what they look for. And the U15s, 17s, 19s, 21s, the Olympic team, the men's and women's team, they all play the same brand of football. You just mentioned Argentina. They play the same brand of football, every single national team. If you remember what LAFC was under Steve Chirundolo, it's not like what you saw the U.S. men's national team trying to play in the World Cup. It's far from it. It is pragmatic. It is reactive. It is transition football. That is a far cry from the World Cup ceiling that we want to tout when it comes to talking about how good this team was in moments in that World Cup. That's going to be in motion. Just save this tweet. That style, we'll be here at some point, and if it happens, come back to this. Who would I bring in? Because everyone's like, offer solutions. If I had my way, I would go with Pellegrino Matarazzo. and
But he's not
it's a
available.
well, everybody's available. Everybody's available till they're not, and that's the thing. That it almost feels like with Pochettino, and I'm not opposed to it. You know, it almost feels like it's out of convenience because it's like, well, who else are we going to get, right? And then if you have that view, well, Pochettino could have that view as well. Well, there's nothing else right now, you know. So you give yourself an out on both ways, and that's what I'm getting at here. If I could bring somebody for the U.S. men's national team right now, it would be a Pellegrino Matarazzo, and the reasons for that is because I feel with Pellegrino Matarazzo, you have a respected coach who has played multiple ways and gotten multiple results. In the Bundesliga, at teams like Hoffenheim, he sees a layout where he's like, okay, maybe the talent on the roster isn't as such where I could play a proactive style, where I could play a possession-based, where I could play with wing play. I need to grind out results. I just need to get results. And he's done that. He goes to a team like Real Sociedad and he sees the roster and he's like, hold on a second. I've got some pieces here. And you see this team playing a very good brand of football and they win a Copa del Rey. I think in the 12-game run they had where they had one loss, that one loss came at the hands of Real Madrid, and he actually had an alternate lineup against that Real Madrid because he was preparing to face off against the semifinal. I think it was maybe Barcelona. 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 So that's the route I would go with. So when people were like, well, who would you? That's what I would do. And they said, he's not available. Everybody's available until they're not.
But again,
and we've seen these things.
The problem is it's the same thing with Pochettino, right? When we talk about, oh, I wouldn't renew with him because I think there's a very high risk that he'll leave mid-cycle. I don't see where that risk is. Like, could he leave mid-cycle? Any coach can leave mid-cycle. Obviously, some are more likely than others. Like, for example, you get an MLS coach, like, not an MLS coach. Let's just put like Greg Berhalter, for example. He's not going to leave the national team because as an MLS coach and American, I would say the U.S. men's national team job is probably peak, right? It's what you want. So it's very unlikely. Jesse Marsch, if you hired him, he's not leaving the U.S. national team, even though now he doesn't want to anymore. But Pellegrino Matarazzo, yes, if we could hire him right now, I would not be opposed to that. This is a guy that got promoted with Stuttgart, kept him in the Bundesliga. The Bundesliga is more of a back-and-forth league, transition league for the most part. And then he goes to La Liga. Statistically speaking, it is.
What do you mean? Like I think it's very tactical.
League. It's a very counterattacking league. No, it's tactical, but it's a very much counterattacking league. Most teams, it's more back and forth than others. Like Spain is more possession-based for the most part. Of course, you get reactive teams. You get
you have your Getafes there. Yeah. We're gonna.
But for the most part, like you even talked about, the style of play that he has with Real Sociedad, it's much different than he had with Stuttgart.
Very good brand.
When he got promoted. So, and also this guy understands the difference in dynamics. The way you play with Stuttgart in the second Bundesliga is not the same way you're going to play with Stuttgart in the Bundesliga if you want to stay. Which for the U.S., the way you play in the CONCACAF World Cup qualifying is not the same way you're going to play in the World Cup. It's different.
But you understand that. You understand that. I don't think many people understand what you just said. Like, I'm not going to go crazy. People think I hate Pochettino. No, I'm going to analyze Pochettino, the U.S. men's national, the same way I've been analyzing it before him in a constructive, manner, and I'll analyze the game. Like, I know the difficulties of going down to Panama and trying to win in Panama, or in San Pedro Sula and trying to win in San Pedro Sula, or the Azteca. Most people just see ranking on paper by FIFA number 50-something, and they're like, you should beat this team no matter what. That's not what's happening here. And this is going to be a learning curve for Pochettino as well. He's never experienced World Cup qualifying within CONCACAF.
There's some similarities to CONMEBOL that he'll be able to adjust to. I think there's some similarities, right? Like in Argentina playing in Bolivia, a team that's far less talented, but they create a tough environment.
Sure.
Like Honduras would. There's some similarities to it.
Sure, but you got to remember, he's also brand new at this as an international coach. And he experiencing in the United States not being a home team for him was a massive culture shock, And do you recall him telling fans to come out and support the team? You should support the team.
Oh, the culture shock is playing in the U.S. for him because he's like, how can you come play here?
Correct. That's what I'm saying.
Argentina plays at the Monumental de Núñez. It's 70,000 people screaming, and then the U.S. has to go play in a 20,000 seat stadium, and we get like 18,000 people.
Well, against Guatemala in Austin, I was there that game. It was a semifinal, if I'm not mistaken. It was an 85-15 split of Guatemalan fans. And that's a massive culture shock if you've never experienced it. and you're the head coach. So there are going to be things in his tenure that he's going to be experiencing for the first time that I'm not going to react in a negative way when it doesn't go his way. Do you know what I mean? But the benchmarks are different now.
I want to just stay on Pellegrino Materazzo for a second. The thing with Materazzo is like he's available as much as Pochettino might be available for a club right now. Like he's with Real Sociedad. Obviously, let's say Real Sociedad is paying Materazzo. I don't know the salary, by the way. I'm just guessing. Let's say they're paying him 1.5 million a year, something like that, which is not. It's a good salary for a coach there, especially when you're not the Pep Guardiolas, the Simeones.
Yeah, we're also talking about net versus gross and etc.
Yeah,
and
in Europe it's net. Yeah,
and people don't realize like just salary. Like Pochettino's got a massive salary around the world as an international coach. Club coaches are different, but as an international coach, he is getting paid a massive salary.
And then Pellegrino Materazzo is making 1.5, let's say gross, just so I can keep it consistent. And then U.S. Soccer offers him 6 million gross. All of a sudden, it's like, holy shit, like I do want to continue my club career, and I'm in a very good La Liga club. I'm in a good position here, but that's almost like a 4x increase here for me. And it is my country. So, yes, he could be available. My only question is, like, we can't really consider Pellegrino Materazzo when he's not actually available. You can talk to him all you want. The odds of him accepting to leave a club, he just won the Copa del Rey, which was historical for them. He's definitely on a long leash right there. He can make some mistakes. You're not going to fire him in 2 months, I would assume. And that's if he does very poorly, of course. I know the pressure there is different. So I can't put Pellegrino Materazzo as an option. And then when I look at the realistic options, like Cherundolo is a realistic option. We could put him right now, Cherundolo, right? Could hire him right now. I think any MLS coach, any American coach, even if you get like BJ Callahan that's doing great with Nashville, I do think most of them would want this job for the most part. But my overall point is like when you look at the options, we don't want to. One thing you said that I agree with entirely, we don't want to waste time. And yes, if Pochettino leaves mid-cycle, a lot of time will have been wasted. But I also don't want to waste 6 months to a year waiting on someone right now.
But you wouldn't have to wait. And I think where maybe people are confused here, Filippo. Contracts are made to be broken, and that doesn't mean like you rip up the contract. That means there are clauses. How would Pochettino get out of this contract with the U.S.?
But here's the other question.
No, let me just. How would he get out of this contract?
A fee or something.
There's a clause. That's exactly how you would get Pellegrino Materazzo out of a contract. There's a release clause.
But
so
what if Materazzo doesn't want to leave Real Sociedad? Is there any other option? Like who do you
Well, that's a different conversation. That's a different conversation. But we know because he's spoken to Roger Bennett at Men in Blazers, and he's expressed his interest of coaching the U.S. men's national team. And we even know because before Pochettino, there was actually like a somewhat semi-informal interview with the U.S. Soccer Federation and Pellegrino Materazzo. So now you're getting into presuming what he wants.
But that's because of his current situation, right?
Correct.
It changes. Like right now, he's in a very good position in a good La Liga team right now.
Yeah, but that's exactly what leads us to presume that Pochettino won't fulfill the 4-year cycle. It's because there's a constant flirtation with other teams, constant connection to other teams. You let me know if on the top of your head you can think of another coach who in the past 2 years has been in a job and linked to so many other jobs. I can't think of one. And I cover for ESPN Deportes, La Liga. I do international football. Off the top of my head, I can't think of one that's been constantly linked with another team like Pochettino. I'm trying to be honest and objective here. I'm trying to think of one.
Why he wouldn't leave right now. That's what I'm saying. It's
because there's not because it's demand. There's no demand for him right now.
But he can stay 6 months or 3 months waiting rather than leaving the U.S. after 3 months.
Yeah, but then you may not have. Then you may not have the U.S. And what he has right now is the best of both worlds. Is he's got the U.S. deal, and I'm not saying this is a negative for him. I actually think it's a brilliant move for him. I think I think he and his representation. I think he represents himself, but he's got people who help him. Have played this out in a beautiful manner where he protects himself. And as an athlete, as a manager, like you want protection, you know, you don't want to be left with nothing in hand. And he's got right now the best of both worlds. He stays in a country that he's very fond of, where I think he came out as one of the tournament darlings. Like he's one of America's sweethearts. 50 million people are going to say it was the players, it's the federation, it's the culture. Not a lot of them are going to say it's the coach. And he enjoys being, you know, a semi-celebrity, and the the allure of everything that happened during the World Cup, how romantic everything was. He enjoys that. So he's going to get his money. He's going to enjoy it. He's going to still be in and around soccer because he's a soccer person. And
So
you want that in your blood.
I have a reverse question to that. If you knew that Pochettino would stay till 2030 and you knew Pellegrino Materazzo wanted the job, who do you pick?
If I knew that Pochettino would stay to 2030,
Yeah, I guarantee you. It's like, listen, Herc, I put a clause right there that is $1 billion, so this guy ain't going anywhere. And then Materazzo also says, I am willing to leave Real Sociedad right now if they give me the 4 years. Who would you pick out of those two?
yeah, I don't think
I would pick Pochettino right now, and I'll explain why in a second, but I'll
Okay.
let you answer.
Here's my. I would pick Pochettino as only the coach. Here's my worry is that you've given all this power to a guy who we've already have doubts of being here. He's going to have direct influence in player pathway, and you've got much more experience at the grassroots level and maybe somewhat academy level because you see it in where you are in Central Florida. I think that's a massive task, and you've got to get people with big experience there. I would go to the Spanish FA, anybody in or around that's been involved, and I would see what they are doing. I would see what coaching reform looks like in a country like Spain or France, somewhere of relevance, and I would try to bring somebody of importance there. They gave him that power. Like, they're giving him more power. It's not, there's no Matt Crocker here because they're giving him that ability. They're giving him that pathway. So that worries me. I'd like him to just coach. And if you could just say, hey, 4 years, what you've seen in the World Cup, is it enough to entice you? Sure. Yeah, let's do it. Okay, I'm in. But you're giving him more power there. And when you give him more power, that makes me worried. I don't like the idea of one singular person having that power. So I would pick Pochettino just as a coach. And I like Pellegrino a lot. But I do think Pellegrino may be there later. I think, like Jesse Marsh, he does have that itch to coach the U.S. men's national team.
And I think eventually he will, and he should. Like,
I don't know. Well, that's the thing. It's all about opportunity because we say this right now, Filippo, that eventually he should. He can go out in the next 2 years, be successful with Sociedad for 3-4 years, and then Pochettino around that third, fourth year have a terrible year with Sociedad and the next team. And you're like, well, you don't want to touch him right now. And then maybe after that, it's just not his era or his years, whatever the case may be. It's about opportunity and it's about timing. So that to me is important.
Like Ancelotti with Italy. Maybe if they were in a better situation, that's where he would have landed at some point.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah. Absolutely.
But to Pellegrino, the reason I would choose Pochettino over Pellegrino right now, look, I am okay with us having a foreign coach, but if I were to choose two guys at the same level, I would prefer an American coach to coach the U.S. I just think there's more at stake for that guy.
Would you give that coach that power to have like multiple roles into player pathway development and coaching reform?
For the national team, no. For the national team, no. For a club, yes. For a national team, no. The reason I say that is I'll explain in a second why I would prefer Pochettino over Materazzo right now as the coach. But when it comes to U.S. soccer, I think a lot of Brazilians would actually understand this because I think U.S. and Brazil, in terms of country size, it's much more comparable than a Spain, than a England, right, where Matt Crocker was from. Much smaller countries in land mass and even population. The U.S. won't be able to fix that in terms of identity and local soccer until we start cooperating with like state federations, right? We do need more state tournaments. Those are cheaper to maintain. That's how you get more local.
Explain that.
Okay, let's try to explain in terms of state level. Right now, we don't really have like state tournaments, right? We have like different types of. We have MLS Next, which is honestly, we do have regional, but it's national. Let's be honest with it. ECNL and you have like little state tournaments. What I'm saying is you need something organized by the state federations. And the state federations of soccer in the United States, they're completely like disjointed, disconnected. They don't work
They go by
together.
regions.
Yeah, and I think we're too big of a country. I think it's too far apart where you should have each state organize their own local soccer empowered by our national federation. Kind of operating like how our country
What's that tournament called in Brazil?
The Estadual. And it's pretty damn big in terms of finding local talent. because that's how you get. So, for example, I'll throw an idea out here, and then obviously it's much more complex than that. But let's say Florida, which is what I know the best right now. You have in Florida some USL clubs from USL Championship, League One, League Two, even though League Two only plays during the summer, but that's a club, right? You have MLS teams, which you have Inter Miami and Orlando, which would be the top dogs, which could be like in Brazil, would be like the Flamengo, the Palmeiras in the state, even though those two are different states. And then you have like UPSL teams, which I know many people here that they even pay their players, by the way. They don't pay a salary, but they pay per game. So these guys are making some money playing money cups in UPSL. You have a state tournament where, and by the way, I'm mentioning Florida, Ian Diamande was playing in UPSL.
UPSL. Yeah, what's that? The fourth division, right? Would be
That's the fourth division of the United States, UPSL.
$125 million could be 140 when it's all said and done.
People are talking about Ian Diamande, but I'll talk about other players here. If you come here to Florida and you go watch, the DME Academy is getting better again, but Monteverde, for example, there was a left back here that I know called like Leslie. He's playing for Valencia right now. No one talks about this. He's a left back for Valencia. He's not American. He's from, I think, Ghana, because these academies, they bring them. But anyhow, there's like talent.
You're exactly right.
Yeah. But the only way to see that, because it's very hard for an MLS club to scout ever. But if you have these state tournaments, there were countless moments. Richard Rios, for example. Everyone knows him, right? Super talented. Palmeiras, he played futsal for Flamengo and all that. Palmeiras found him playing for Guarani in the state tournament, and then they signed him.
Well, hold on. Richard Rios was in Mazatlan first in Mexico,
but he was
Liga
playing
MX.
for Guarani
Yeah.
in Palmeiras.
But that you can find what you're saying about these states. It's interesting because Troy Barty he was a video analysis guy on the U.S. men's national team when I was around, and he did scouting within the federation here. He finds Yan Diomande and they bring him over to Florida, where he plays just exactly how you're stating, one of these academies, and that's how his journey starts. So it is very important.
He plays Herc in a state tournament and he lights up Orlando City. All of a sudden, Orlando City is like, wait a second, we can it's not a tryout, it's an actual game, and he just lit up our team. Let's look at. So that's.
I think that happened, by the way. I think there were plenty of teams who were like, hey, this is interesting. They just, for whatever reason, couldn't come up with what his representation thought was a fair market value for him.
They don't trust these things too. Like, I'll tell you one thing. Like, I don't go to all the games here, but I do watch some UPSL games here, and I talk to people. Alex Freeman played in UPSL, and he struggled. Alex Freeman. Yeah. So the level is obviously not professional there, but there are players you can find, but you're not going to find it unless you create an environment to find it. And that's what I was talking about state. Now, I'm talking about Florida. Imagine the talent in California. It's like there. I know there's a lot of Latinos here in Florida, but I feel like California, New York, there's some areas, Texas, that you can find even more. And I don't think like the coach of the national team should have his hands on that. You need someone that is focused on that.
Correct.
And honestly, a guy that can do
so
politics.
Big.
You have to be very good with politics. You have to find a way to get all these federations, because we have 50 states, right? It's going to be very complicated. I don't even know how it works with some states like Alaska, Hawaii, and things like that. But it can't be the coach, right? Now, if the coach wants to be involved in the Olympic team or the U20, I'm okay with that part. Like Jesse Marsh is doing that. Well, Jesse Marsh is coaching the Canadian one. I'm okay if the coach is involved.
He's coaching the U20s right now.
Yeah, he is in the U20 championship, Jesse Marsh. I'm okay if Pochettino's like heavily involved with Cherundolo, with the Olympic team, for example, because there could be some level of communication with the Copa America.
I think that's vital.
Olympics.
I think that's important.
Vital. But not at the very, not the micro that we're talking about, the macro. That's okay. And I think the Federation made a big mistake by bringing Matt Crocker. That's not a guy, I can see how Matt Crocker could arrive here. He could look at the U.S. soccer landscape and just what the fuck, man? What is going on here? How do I fix it?
Well, that's the reason Pochettino's here, Ms. Matt Crocker. Let's not forget about that. He's the guy who brought Pochettino in.
Yeah, but I think Pochettino's job has to be entirely. It's what you said. He's the coach. He's not here to be like a sporting director or even a manager. He is the coach. Now, mind you, obviously, being the coach of the U.S. national team, you do need to understand that you do need to recruit dual nationals. You like it or not. Not beg, but recruit, right? I'm not for begging, but you do need to recruit.
Yeah.
And I can see how that's something that, from a cultural standpoint, it doesn't really make sense for It doesn't make sense for Argentines. It doesn't make sense for Brazilians for the most, at least not Brazilians in Brazil, right? If you're in the U.S., you understand it. But back to what I was talking about, Pochettino and Materazzo, because then I'm lost track as we start talking about youth soccer. That might be a good separate episode. I think the reason I would choose Pochettino right now is I started to finally see progress under Pochettino. I question Pochettino a lot throughout the cycle because, yes, the stats you brought up, they're stats. They're not opinions.
Yeah.
And it wasn't looking good leading into the World Cup, and I was very concerned about this team leading into the World Cup. But then the friendlies against Senegal and Germany, we started to see a few good things right there already. The game against Paraguay, fantastic performance that game.
And I rate Paraguay. I rate Paraguay.
Knocked out Germany. Like that, and they gave, for whatever you think about their playing style, they gave France a hard time that game.
Yeah, it was a difficult. Yeah, but that's a team that worked teams in World Cup qualifying with Gustavo Alfaro. They were defensively something else, and the U.S. men's national team made them look pedestrian.
Exactly. And then we played Australia, and the second half versus Australia wasn't great. But guys, like I told this, guys, beating Australia 2-0 is not easy. Like Egypt almost beat Argentina. They had to go to penalties. Australia is not an easy team to break down. You could get the best teams in the world, the Spain's, everything. It's just a team that they will beat. Spain will beat Australia. It's just not easy. It's just not an easy team.
You're preaching to the choir.
Yeah, and then we played Turkey, reserves, weird game, whatever. Bosnia, another team that, yeah, they're not top quality, but it's not an easy team to beat. Bosnia.
Yeah, just remember this, and this is neither here nor there, but just the opportunity that was missed. This is not on Pochettino. It's not on the players. It's just the opportunity that was missed. You may never get this moment in time again where you have your golden generation, your best team on paper that you ever had.
Calling them golden generation.
Yeah, that's what the air quotes are for.
Yeah.
The best team that on paper that you've ever had. The platforms where they play, playing at home as a pot one team where they are theoretically the best team in the group. You played Paraguay, Australia, and Bosnia. We rate those teams. We really do. But you will be praying for those teams come 2030 that you get those teams again. You understand what I'm saying?
Unless they expand the World Cup to 64.
We're
playing Tanzania and Pakistan or something.
Well, or you may be playing Nigeria or Italy. So be careful what you wish for. So what I'm
Nigeria these days. I'll take Nigeria.
I don't think you want Nigeria. but what I'm saying, Tack, is like you may never get a road like this. And the road is the road. I'm not going to complain about Argentina and the teams that they faced off, like, Algeria, Austria, Jordan. And then it was a team like, who was it? Cabo Verde, Egypt, Switzerland. And then, and I'm never going to complain about the road. The road is the road. But you may never get this road again. Because in this moment in time, this snapshot was a perfect moment for you to try to make history. You would pray for the same road again in 2030 to face Belgium again. I would take that. Would you take that?
Yeah,
that's why
out of the top teams, Belgium is one that I thought was beatable out of the top teams.
Especially the way they were playing. In the World Cup.
Yeah. I think that, so this question I asked you earlier, not I asked you, I made a statement, but then I'm going to ask you. It was not the best World Cup of all time for the U.S. men's national team, ultimately for me because of the Belgium game.
Wait, you just said it was.
Up until the Belgium game. Come
on.
That's what I think. So let me ask you this. So, Herc, up until the Belgium game, was it not the best World Cup we've ever had? Because I'll say this. I agree with you that making it to the round of 16 in the expanded World Cup, because we won a knockout game, it's not the same as making it to the quarterfinals in previous ones. But making it to the round of 16 in the expanded World Cup is tougher than in the previous ones. Because you do still have to win a knockout game. And winning a knockout game is winning a knockout game.
You think it's tougher now than it was back then?
I think it's tougher now to make it to the round of 16, but it's not tougher. It's easier to win a knockout game. That's what I said.
No, because you can make it as a third place team. The group D for the U.S. men's national team
you still have to win a knockout game. You can't just make it.
Yeah, but who was your knockout game against?
It was Bosnia, but
Bosnia. So that's another group game, respectively.
Mexico in 2002.
Yeah. That's a lot harder than playing Bosnia. That Mexican team. No. That Mexican team. And 2002, you beat that Portuguese team.
You sound like Italy, dude. You sound like Italy now.
How so?
Italy said that about Bosnia, and then they lost to Bosnia. and they
Yeah,
didn't go to the
but
World
you're
Cup.
talking about a team that's not gone to 3 World Cups, the
But
past 3
Italy's
World
still a
Cups.
good team when you look at it player by player. Of course, they're still a good team.
Yeah, but there's a reason they've not been to 3 different World Cups, and when they were in the World Cups, they were getting eliminated in group phases. Like we can sit here, we can. I'm with you. Italy's a good, but there's a reason they're not there, and they've not
Mhm.
been there for so many editions. That Portuguese team in 2002 was a real threat,
On
and
paper.
pro and well, no, and on the field for their play. That's the best win the U.S. have ever had in a World Cup, is the win against Portugal. For the moment of that Portuguese team, for everything that happened, that's still the best win.
Best win or best performance or both?
First half, because we're gonna go first half.
Yeah.
I take the Portugal game just because it's Portugal. And I remember that game like it was yesterday. And if like even the own goal, like to an extent, happened. They were very similar. A lot of parallels. Like the U.S. against Paraguay opens up with an own goal. There's a, if you will, kind of an own goal off a cross that comes in. There are a lot of similarities here. But the biggest takeaway is one was Paraguay, which I respect, and I rate, and the other one was Portugal, which is a surprise to everybody. And they're very similar in terms of just group play. I don't think I've ever had a sensation. How old were you in 2002?
I was 8.
Yeah, I don't think I've
I
ever had a.
remember the World Cup, but it's as a kid, right? So
Yeah,
you're
no,
not,
yeah, it's very
yeah.
difficult because
Doesn't hit the
I
same.
remember 94, but it doesn't hit you the same, and that was around 8, 9, 90, 1994. I remember the sensation of seeing the U.S. men's national team beat Portugal. Like, it was just different because it was that Portuguese team, because of how they did it. This team in this World Cup gave me similar sensations. And maybe it's because the bar was so low. Like, I remember the sensation of Kova, of 2018, of not qualifying. I remember that sensation. And it feels like the bar has been so low ever since, that the high was really high in this World Cup. You know what I mean? And they made people believe. And that's part of the missed opportunity here, is you had 50 million people tune into that Belgium game. And a lot of these people who are flyby, U.S. men's national team fans, USA fans, every 4 years, Olympics or any big tournament, they'll cheer for the USA. Like, they were looking at this team after that performance and saying, taking off the jersey, I didn't sign up for this. That's not what I came for. I was told, why not us?
If we had lost to Belgium in a tight game, right? Like Mexico against England, which I thought it was very honorable the way Mexico lost. Like I saw
One of the game of the
Mexico-
tournaments.
Yeah, I saw Mexico like actually pushing England to the limit, right? If we had lost that way, would you say this World Cup is toe to toe with 2002 in terms of like how we've done? I know we didn't make it to the quarterfinals. If we lost, you say no.
2002, they should have beat Germany. There were a handball that wasn't called. Greg
But we could have
Berhalter,
also not gotten out of the group if Portugal just tied South Korea, right?
and they didn't. Yeah, and they didn't. It's.
But I'm
there's
saying
so
this
many
World
different
Cup, we
variables,
qualified. I know the group in this World Cup,
and maybe it's different if the U.S. government doesn't get involved with Infantino and the red card,
Very likely.
stands. Maybe the sentiment is different, and you go into this game with a different feeling, and the rest of the world has a different feeling, and you use that to your advantage. Like, there's so many what ifs here. 2002, you were this close to a semifinal tack. Like, I still remember the Greg Berhalter header, and it's Torsten Frings on the line, and it hits his hand. If VAR's there back then, like, chances are you're going to a semifinal.
Yeah, that's a red and a PK. Yeah.
Yeah, and people my age, they don't forget that, and it's comparing generations.
They would have given a penalty if it was Argentina. They would have, even without the VAR. It hit his butt, doesn't matter.
This
It's an
guy.
extension of his hand.
This
It's the
guy.
same thing.
But I still give it to 2002, and ultimately it's all about how it made you feel. And this World Cup and this is why I think Pochettino's still here. It made a lot of people feel very good. Up until, they'll always say up until a certain moment. They'll always say that, but it made him feel good.
So just to close this then, I still think up until the Belgium game, obviously with the Belgium loss 4-1, there's no way to argue for this to be the best World Cup we've ever had. But I was talking to Pete about this even. because I was like, obviously the 4-1 loss was worse than 2014 to Belgium because we lost 2-1 in extra time. And there were moments where it looked like we were going to win. But my question to Pete was, if we
Couple.
didn't have Howard and we had Matt Freese in 2014, no disrespect to Matt Freese, but the levels are just not the same right
Yeah.
there. Would we ever have had any shot in that game?
If you had Balogun instead of Wanda, and I don't know, with all due respect to Wanda, who I love, things could have been different. So you can go back different ways with this. Let me ask you a question before we leave this.
It's just that Tim Howard had the game, like it was one of the best like goalkeeping performances in World Cup history. Like it's up
Don't
there.
you find it? Timmy took a shot at Curacao and how he didn't want to watch him there, and how they're gonna get smashed in the World Cup. He took a shot at the expanded World Cup, and I love Timmy as well. And then Eloy Room came out and did a podcast where he said it was disrespectful. Did you find it cosmic, like karma in a cosmic way, that Eloy Room then goes on to break or to equal that record, goal stopping record against Ecuador?
Oh yeah, I didn't even think about that.
Yeah. Anyways, I digress. Let me ask you this question, okay? Looking at the three host nations, rank within each nation what you think, whose World Cup was the best from 1 to 3.
In terms of like how proud the population was, or
everything,
results, everything. Mexico's number one for sure out of the three because they topped their group. They won every game in the group stage, and when they won every game, and when they finally faced a top opponent, they gave them a run for their money. Right? They lost, sure, but
we're in accordance. Okay.
Yeah. So Mexico for sure. I think United States is number 2, ahead of Canada. I mean, the Canadians might be more proud of Canada because there were absolutely, like, Canada had never won a World Cup game.
They've never had a point.
They never had a point. Yeah, you're right. In 2 World Cups that they've played, they got out of their group in second. They won a knockout game. Regardless of who it is, you can only beat who's in front of you, is South Africa. And then the Morocco game, I don't agree with Marsh of the whole thing of, like, he tried to portray as if they were better.
They were better. They were better. They were way better. The scoreline doesn't reflect the game. They were way better.
Here's the thing. I'm a firm believer that there's no such thing as an unfair result in soccer. It's whoever puts the ball in the back of net, and you lose 3-0. You cannot say you were better. You could say that you played a good game, that
they played a good game, and they were better. They were better at creating chances. Morocco was better at putting those chances away.
Yeah, they lost 3-0, but the United States had a better group stage than Canada. Not argue, it's not even debatable. I personally think Bosnia is a tougher opponent than South Africa, in my opinion, and the U.S. was able to defeat them playing man down. Which, again, regardless of what we think of what Trump and Infantino did after, I don't think that was supposed to be a red card for Balogun.
It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter if you think it is or isn't.
No,
it just should have never been to that position.
It is what it is. But at the end of the day, I think the U.S. did have a better World Cup than Canada.
Yeah. I'm very interested in what the chat has to say about that.
Yeah. When I made a post on Instagram when the World Cup ended. And people didn't really vote for number 2. They were just voting for number 1, and everyone was agreeing that it's Mexico because it's not really debatable, right?
I don't think that's debatable. They had 0 goals against up until England,
and I mean, it's the way they lost to England, right? Like we said, Canada, regardless of what you think of their performance, they lost 3-0 to Morocco, and the U.S. lost 4-1 to Belgium. Mexico was pressing the living crap out of England till the last minute, right? So they actually had a shot. England had to work for it. Belgium didn't feel like they had to work for it that much, and Morocco, maybe they worked for it, but it was 3-0. 3-0.
Yeah, but it was a good game by Canada.
You think it was Canada?
What?
Your vote for number 2 is Canada?
Yeah.
Second best?
Yeah, I think if you ask neutrals, they would go 1, 2, 3 in that order. They go 1 Mexico, 2 Canada, 3 US. Neutrals. If you're a US fan, you may say you feel better about yourself than what Canada showed. I think most neutrals would go down that route. But I'm interested in hearing what the chat says. And this is the great thing about this. Like, I'm not the owner of the truth. You're not the owner of the truth. Like, I encourage dialogue. Like, nothing is for clicks. I'm not getting extra money in my account off of Twitter. Trust me. That's not how it works. I encourage dialogue.
For a second, people, when they go and it's like, he's tweeting for money and for clicks, it's like, guys, if you look at the pay on Twitter, it's like I get a lot of engagement on Twitter. And you're lucky if you make like $50 to $100 in a month. I'm just giving you guys the numbers right here. And my engagement is like in the millions, the impressions, in the
Correct.
millions.
Correct.
So it's like, no one is living off Twitter. So just let's
No,
just
listen,
end that.
I give you credit because you have an opinion, and it's not about standing by your opinion because opinions can change because circumstances change, but you at least give an opinion. There are people who like, nah, man, Twitter's a little too toxic for my liking. I don't want to post anything. I will talk through emojis. You know, like that's, come on.
I enjoy it. I think also part of growth in US, because I know the leaders of soccer in this country, whether it's the federation, whether it's MLS teams, the commissioner. I know they're looking through social media. I know some of them are probably watching the YouTube videos.
Oh,
And
they do. They
yeah,
absolutely watch. I just I won't say. Oh, I did an interview, not interview, excuse me. I did a video on the new commissioner of Major League Soccer on my YouTube page, or maybe it wasn't that one. It was on dual.
that
It was on Vamos. I did Pablo Mar, who's a reporter for The Guardian, and we had a conversation about the new commissioner and Don Garber, and I received a lengthy email about it from somebody. It wasn't negative, but I received a lengthy email from somebody at the league office. You know, it was a positive email. But you people, they watch, they pay attention to everything.
and that's why I think it's important, because the problem is when we're working on something and there's no noise from the outside, no one telling you something, sometimes you get a little complacent. You think you're doing the right thing. In us talking about it and the fans talking about it, everyone, right? Because the fans are much louder than me, you, or anybody, because that's like thousands of people talking at the same time. At least it gets these people to talk about, have these conversations, and think about it. They may not do anything. They may just say, no, these guys are full of shit, but they're going to think about it. They're going to talk about it, and some will agree, some will disagree. Now, if we all stay quiet and they just do whatever they want, usually things don't go well when it's like one person, two, three, four, five people making a decision. That's the goal with this. It's to actually start conversations, and especially when we're talking about MLS, the federation, Pochettino. I still think it was the right decision to keep Pochettino. It was the perfect decision to keep Pochettino. I've talked about this a lot on YouTube. I don't agree with your case of like the 2031 because we can never really predict if the guy's going to leave or not. But these conversations are good for this. Make them think, and then ultimately, I'm not the one that makes the decisions anyway, so my opinion doesn't matter that much.
It always matters. You're a paying customer.
Yeah, that is true. I'm a client of it. I don't even consider myself a pundit, or well, definitely not a journalist. Far from that. Just a fan on YouTube, obnoxious fan on YouTube.
Yeah, but you carry a certain amount of weight because you influence people. That's why there's like a response. Like, trust me, nobody is a holder of the truth. And if you say so, like, I don't want people to agree with me. I want people to understand what I'm trying to say. If you could understand what I'm trying to say, like, yeah, I could see why he feels this way, even though I don't agree with him. That's all I ask for, is that you try to understand it, because it's a new idea for some. Maybe it's not a new idea for all. I'm sure there are plenty of people out there who probably agree with my sentiment, and they're like, well, yeah, this is obvious to me. It's about dialogue. And I think that's important for the growth of being a proper footballing nation, because I ask you this, treat this as if this were Brazil. You would have the same doubts. Why can't we apply it here? We want to be the same, but we don't.
Yeah, that's why I'm always for. It's hard to bring someone here at the channel that I know we agree in a lot of topics, but we disagree in some, and very often people don't want to come here when they want to disagree. And I was like, that's fun. We don't have to agree. We don't have to agree every time. But Herc, to close this episode, final question: I know ultimately we're only going to know by the end of the cycle. Was re-signing Pochettino a mistake or the right move?
I think it will be proved to be a mistake if he leaves, and proved to be the right move if he stays. And I'm not with we will see in the World Cup. There's got to be benchmarks here. Like, I ask you what you expect of Mauricio Pochettino. And that it doesn't have to do with, because you're going to say about the new generation, you're going to say about an identity, a style of play. What do you want to see? What do you want to see come Mexico? What do you want to see come Nations League? What do you want to see come Gold Cup? Like, that needs to be part of the conversation. And that, to me, is what gets me here, is that there's nobody putting their face on it. There's nobody at US Soccer saying this decision was made and we expect this out of Mauricio Pochettino. We expect this out of our national team.
See if
that is worrisome.
Demands. In my opinion, I wouldn't hold him accountable to win every trophy next year, but he needs to win one at least, right? And go deep on the other because you can lose a final, right? That can happen, but you
It's
need to
football.
win at least one, either Nations League or Gold Cup, at least one, preferably both. So that's
And where do
the
you
bare
go in
minimum.
Copa America?
I would say he has to aim for a semifinals because that's one knockout win. One knockout win. We're probably
Could
gonna.
be two. Could be two.
Oh yeah, they might expand it. You're right. So we don't know yet. Yeah, we don't know yet. Assuming it's the same as the previous Copa America, top your group, because even if we were in a group right now with Uruguay, Panama, and Bolivia, go for number one, and then you're gonna play a Paraguay, an Ecuador, a Canada.
Colombia.
W-
Yeah.
Hopefully not a Colombia if you top your group, but it could happen because they were in Brazil's group last time. And then win that one knockout game, then yeah, I'm not going to hold him accountable if he loses to Argentina in the semis or Brazil or
Correct.
Colombia. But also don't get embarrassed, right? If you're going to lose to them, lose like Mexico lost to England, not how we lost to Belgium. I would say up until 2028, that's what I'm expecting. It's like win one trophy at least and a Copa America where like that's good because I mean Jurgen made it to the semis, right? So we can talk about that.
Canada made it to the semis.
Canada made it to the semis. Peru made it to the final. So
Wow. Come on.
still counts.
Come on.
And then from there, obviously, World Cup qualifying because of the expanded spots. I know it's not easy, but I expect a comfortable qualification, not something dramatic. It should be comfortable because there are more spots now. And I think based on the format, we might not even play Mexico and Canada. I have to look into that again. I think we might not even play them, which is I think that sucks. I loved the
right.
Mexico U.S. World Cup qualifying, but anyhow, that's for another.
What do you really quickly before we get out of here because it's been a while? What do you expect to see out of these 4 games?
The one in September.
All of these 4 games, September, October.
Well, let's start the roster. I think he has to start doing a little bit of what you talked about bringing a bit of the young guys that he thinks might be ready. Like, for example, Xavier Gozo's one that should be ready to contribute right now to a certain extent. I'm not one of those guys that say bring Kevin Sullivan. I've been watching his games. I don't think it's the time. He should be with the Olympic team. I'm not seeing it yet. Right? I see the talent. I'm just not seeing it's like I don't think Kevin might even be a contributor for the team in the Copa America. It's something more for 2030. Maybe you bring him in one campeonato. I wouldn't bring him now. I would bring for sure the guys that are contributing now. I bring Mehmeti because I think I've seen something MLS enough. Xavier Gozo. Try to bring some of these young guys and blend in with some of the older guys. I would call me biased all you want. Time to bring Cardoso, and he has to play and has to do well in these friendlies. This is like he's healthy now. He's in preseason. It's like, dude, at some point you have
He
to
plays
play
in a
for
big
that.
club. You'd expect him
Yes.
to be there.
So Cardoso's another one to test out. Maybe bring back Tessman. Maybe Busio got promoted. He's the captain of Venezia. Maybe bring him in, see what he can do. Give it a look. A few of the young guys. Mix these generations, the mid-generation, the older generation, the younger one, in this camp. And then we have 4 games, and they're very tight, right? They're 3 days apart. So you might want to bring like a 26 to 30-man roster so you can rotate everyone. And honestly, results-wise, you have to beat Peru and Chile. Like these are the worst teams in CONMEBOL right now. You have to beat them. I know it's a friendly, but you have to beat them. And I think it's time for him to also get this first win against Mexico, even though it's a friendly. Get your first win against Mexico.
In Arizona, which will be a pro-Mexican crowd there, so it'll be a
We're used
difficult
to
venue
that,
for
right?
him.
Unless we go play in Ohio, we're kind of used to that by now.
Yeah,
So.
yeah. I think maybe unless it's Columbus in November, December, it's the only actual home field advantage you may have.
Is it crazy to demand 4 wins? It's 2 opponents that are not very strong.
I think it's kind of crazy because you don't know what the roster is going to look like. So let's see what the roster looks like. What would you do if you see the likes of a Tim Ream on the roster?
I don't think it makes any sense at this point. I know people are going to say transition. He's going to help transition the new generation. But it's like, guys, he already looked out of it in the World Cup, right? Besides leadership and all of that, and even on the ball. But just it doesn't make sense to me.
Yeah, I don't think we're going to see a lot of the prime players we saw in the World Cup. It's early on in the season. It's a long time. We could see and fans are not going to like this, but I think there could be a lot of conversations with Pochettino and some of these club teams where like, hey, it's in the best interest of the player if he stays. So I think there's going to be a lot of that happening, and there might be a little bit of a freaking out over the rosters, I would assume.
Or maybe or to your point, we have 4 games, right? Maybe he brings a larger roster and some of these more prime players like the Balligans, the McKennies, or whatever. Pulisic won't be there. He's coming back from injury. But the Balligans, the Tillmans, hey, they can go. They play the first 2 games. The last 2,
Could be.
and they're gone.
I'll tell you what works in his favor is that they're long camps now, and he is. When we saw the best out of the national team with Mauricio Pochettino, when he had more time with the players, He definitely didn't seem comfortable. The team didn't look too comfortable when it was at first. He was getting the grips, what it would be like to have a camp that was very short. He was a club coach his whole career, so it makes sense. You know, you give him more time to work with players, he's going to get more out of those players. So now you're going to have more time.
Yeah, so if he brings like a 30-man roster because it's a longer camp, maybe he cuts 10 for the last 2 games, and those 10 are like Balogun, Tillman, whatever. But for example, players like Cardoso, for example, he has something to prove to the national team. He should want to be there 4 games. Like, I'm available for 4 games.
Right.
Whether you want me here for 4 games, that's a different discussion. But I am here to play all 4 if you need me. Honestly, a lot of the guys in the World Cup as well. But we'll see. I think it'll be an interesting camp, but I think ultimately it depends on who he brings. That's what we have to wait. But I do not want to see the Tim Reams. I just don't see the point anymore to bring Tim Ream. Like, he's 38. Dude, he's like getting close to your age.
I'll tell you a story off air.
Okay. Everyone, thank you very much for watching. Let me know your thoughts in the comments section down below. And this is how you have a civilized debate on a topic you don't fully agree with. Thank you for watching, and thank you, Herc, very much.
Appreciate it, my man.